and welcome to another week of the Tourism Teacher Talks. I am a bit lonely this week because unfortunately my planned speaker had to rearrange, so he will still be speaking to you, but not for a few more weeks. So I thought I would take the opportunity this week to keep the theme going that has that I've had going here at Tourism Teacher. And this week I've been doing Careers Week. So there are a number of students who are coming towards the end of their careers. There are also a number of people who are reevaluating their careers right now, given the current situation and circumstances with COVID. So I thought I would focus in on careers this week, and I've been doing a number of talks to schools and colleges that have been personalised for those institutions. I've been giving people some one-to-one guidance. I have been creating some teaching resources for employability skills and work skills. And I've really been having a big focus on careers. And I've been doing that last week and this week and a little bit next week too. So I thought I would continue on with this theme and do a talk with you guys about careers today. And what I'm going to talk about are the next big jobs in travel and tourism. And I've had some excellent feedback when I've covered this topic within some of my classes that I've been doing. So if anyone is awake, because I'm aware in the UK it's super early in the morning, is it about 6:30 or something? But because I had no guests this week, it's a great opportunity that I can do the talk before picking my daughter up at school, because it's only 1:30 here in China. My other daughter is playing in the background, so if you can hear some noise, she is talking to herself right now. So please do excuse me, the joys of working from home with a toddler. So I'm going to talk to you today about the jobs that are going to be big in the travel and tourism industry. Now, a lot of these are not the typical jobs that are spoken about, or they are, but they've got a twist. So the first one that I will talk about is travel agents. So we all know that travel agents have been, or high street travel agents, should I say, have been dying a death for some years. We've seen more and more travel agents closing, and it's been quite sad, really. And then we've seen, major companies like Thomas Cook, like Monarch, close and fold, and they're no longer operating, or certainly not in the sense that they did. So the whole area has changed, and a lot of people think that they're booking independently when they book through companies like booking.com or Expedia, but actually they are examples of online travel agents. Now, there has been a big move towards the dynamic package, where you're creating your own package, but often that is facilitated by an online travel agent. So travel agents, many people say, oh, travel agents are dying a death, they're not staying around. That's not true. It's high street travel agents that are not sticking around. Actually, the online travel agent market is pretty big. And right now, because of COVID, people are a bit anxious about booking travel, and people are a bit nervous because they've experienced mass cancellations. And if you haven't experienced it yourself, you've got friends or family, or you've seen it on the news, there've been a lot of cancellations and people have got stuck. People are, I'm still waiting for a refund for a flight from 13 months ago. That's quite a long time. And travel agents just offer you that little bit of extra security. We'll take care of you. We're ATOL protected. We work with ABTA, etc. So by booking through a travel agent, you've got that bit of extra security. And I think certainly in the short-term future, after we recover from recover from COVID and travel does become a bit more widespread, I certainly think that travel agents will be quite popular. And even in the long term, they're not going anywhere. And one of the things that I love is that if you work for an online travel agent, you can work for a big organization like TUI, or you can work for a middle-sized organization, perhaps a regional company, perhaps it's a Minipol. And if you're not familiar with the types of travel agents, I do actually have a blog post that I've written. I'll have to get the link and share it with you. I won't search for it now. But one of the things that does seem to be quite new and has been emerging in recent years is the independent travel agent that people have just started up online. And because we have the freedom and the flexibility to do so many more things online now. We have seen a growth in lots of online businesses, and I've certainly noticed it. I've noticed it amongst travel bloggers, actually, because I'm obviously part of the travel blogger community, and I'm in Facebook groups and things like that. So I see people talking, and I see that a lot of people write articles, why go to Marbella, or the top things to do in Benidorm, or whatever it might be. And then they say, while you're here, why don't you book your holiday with me? And then they are running their own online travel agency business. So, that I think that's absolutely brilliant, and it's something new. So if people are interested in running their own business, it is an option. You might want to do some kind of training in GDS systems. So, looking at Amadeus or Galileo or something like that. And there are lots of online courses can help boost your CV too, which is great, especially in the times of, in the next couple of years, getting a job in travel and tourism probably is going to be quite competitive. And my personal advice is to, I'm sorry, my daughter's being very noisy. My personal advice is, if you can avoid entering the workforce in the next year or two, it's probably better. And I'm not suggesting you sit at home and watch series of Netflix, absolutely not. I am suggesting you further your studies, or you get some work experience in another sector, but that it has transferable skills. So perhaps in the customer service industry, perhaps you could be in retail, for example, and then you'll gain transferable skills, which you can then take to the travel and tourism sector, because travel will be back. The UN have predicted, and a number of other organisations, that maybe by 2024, we will be back at 2019 levels in terms of travel and tourism and the number of people travelling. So, it is coming back, and that's the length of a university degree. So if you're a student at college now thinking, what do I do? Maybe don't try and take a gap year this year. I think you're just setting yourself up for disappointment, and I hate to say that, but doors are closed to countries around the world. There are a lot of complications. So it's not the best time to go traveling. The world's not going anywhere. It's coming back. Just postpone it a couple of years. And my suggestion is to either go to university or to get some valuable work experience in another sector that gives you transferable skills that you can move. And so I'm going a bit off point now. So that's online travel agents. Travel insurance. Okay, I know what a lot of people are thinking here. They're thinking, oh, that sounds really boring. A lot of students anyway, 17-year-olds, 16-year-olds, oh, travel insurance, that's so boring, that's so dull. But it can pay quite well, actually. And a lot of people who work in insurance or the financial industry are often quite highly paid. So if it's, if it's money that you're after, there are a lot of jobs in the travel and tourism industry that don't offer huge salaries. I'm sorry, now somebody is drilling a hole in the next apartment from me. Hopefully they won't be too noisy. So travel insurance is going to be at the forefront of people's minds post-COVID, because, like I said, people have experienced cancellations, delays, etc., etc. So travel insurance is very important, and this has just highlighted that. So there will definitely be a market for travel insurance. A lot of people are going to be investing their money into it, and there's a career there if you want it. Cabin crew. So there are always some students, there's always at least one in every class who wants to be cabin crew. Cabin crew is a great job. I used to do it myself. I worked for British Airways. When I was 21, I worked for British Airways City Flyer, based out of London City. I did short haul operations there. And when I was 24, I worked for British Airways Mixed Fleet out of London Heathrow, and that was a combination of long haul and short haul flights. So I'm quite familiar, and I've obviously taught cabin crew. Most of you, a lot of you are probably familiar. I've taught cabin crew for many years to students, and I've run my own courses on cabin crew and how to be cabin crew, etc. And one of the things I will tell you is that working as cabin crew isn't quite the same as it used to be. Yes, there is still an element of looking glamorous there. Yes, you are still expected to give excellent customer service and to provide food and drinks, etc. That hasn't changed. But there is also an increased pressure on students. Sorry, my daughter is distracting me. There's also an increased pressure on cabin crew now, not only to give good service, but to make the airline money. So the airline industry was completely disrupted when budget airlines came in, the likes of Ryanair, Wizz Air, EasyJet, etc. And a lot of airlines have had to unbundle their products. So that is when you take what was included in the traditional package. So, for example, you have an airline seat and baggage and food. They've taken these elements away in order to be more competitive, lower their prices, and then they're trying to make money by selling you lots of extra things. And one of the jobs now for cabin crew is to sell some of these extra things. So as cabin crew, the industry is a bit different, and obviously COVID has changed it somewhat as well. But cabin crew isn't the same as it was some years ago. That's not, and I'm not trying to put anyone off there, but I'm just saying they may be looking for something a bit extra. And something else on that point, do you know that only 5% of people who apply for a job as cabin crew are successful in getting the job? And many airlines don't allow you to reapply for 6 months or a year, different rules for different airlines. So when you do apply, you really want to make sure that you do a super good job and you have the best application that you can have. So, my daughter's very, very distracting. I can hear her talking in the other room. Yeah, you want to have the best application. So I recommend getting people to look over your CV and really learn what the airlines are looking for. What are the airlines looking for when they hire cabin crew, and give it to them, because the competition is high, especially post-COVID. It's going to be higher. The competition is high, so do the best you can. And one way that you can do that is by taking some kind of online course. I've written a course, but I'm not here to plug my own course. There are several online that can be really helpful in just teaching you what the airlines are looking for, what sort of things should you put in your application, how to act when you go for that assessment day, etc. So that can be pretty helpful. Influencer marketing. Now, this is something that I think a lot of younger students can relate to, because the vast majority of 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21-year-olds, and that's kind of the rough age of most students at college and university, the vast majority of those are on social media, and they do follow their set influencers, the influencers that they find interesting. And if they are travel and tourism students, it's quite likely that they follow some travel and tourism influencers. Now, what's the link between influencer and marketing? That's not always so obvious to people, but actually it is obvious when you think about it, if that makes sense. So how do influencers make their money? Mostly through marketing. So let's say you are a travel influencer, you go and stay in a lovely hotel, you post Instagram stories, and you do TikTok videos, and maybe you do a YouTube video, whatever, and you're saying, look at this hotel, look how amazing it is. By the way, this is the name, come stay here. Now, that hotel may have given them a complimentary stay in return for their work. They may be paying them. I have people that contact me and ask me to put links into my blog posts. I usually say no, because they don't usually fit, but there are lots of companies who try to do that. So that's a way that influencers make money. And also, when you are an influencer, you are a brand in yourself too. You are developing a brand that is you. And that's what people want to follow. That's what people want to watch. So, okay, good girl. Okay. Please bear with me for just 10 seconds while I take my daughter to the toilet. Sorry about that. I am here. So you are a brand in yourself, and people will take years to build up that brand. Now, one thing that I say to students is that, yes, this might look like a desirable job and a career to have. I mean, you're watching that person who is just lounging around the pool, putting beautiful photos, saying how wonderful their trip is, right? Okay, take it off there. And take it off. But it's not as easy as it looks. And often people will work for years with very little money, or they build up enough to monetize the YouTube videos, build up enough followers, subscribers, etc., and views. Maybe they will. Sorry, my daughter is very. Oh, thank you, darling. Maybe they will. Yeah. Here you go. I thought doing a video at this time would have less distractions because I've only got one child, but obviously not. Sorry, apparently I have to open parcels. I wonder what it could be. Here in China, the online delivery is amazing. Ah, there you go. And then you can take them all out. I'm so sorry about that. Right, back to influencer marketing. It's not as easy as it looks, and I'm not trying to put people off and say don't do it. I mean, I've kind of been dabbling in that area. I wouldn't say I'm a major influencer by any stretch of the imagination, but I have learned a lot about the industry, and I have had quite a lot of discussions with influencers and learning how they've come to be and their story, etc. And yeah, look at that. And yes, take it off there. So one thing that a lot of people don't realize is that actually influencers often have a whole team of people behind them. You might have a Pinterest manager, a video editor, a blog writer, an SEO, search engine optimization expert, an accountant, an IT technician, etc., etc. So if you're quite interested actually in working in the area of influencer marketing, you don't need to be the big shot influencer. You can work on their team. And actually, one thing that I've come to realize, because I use it a lot myself, is freelance work. And I hire a lot of freelancers. I'm not in a position to have a whole team, unfortunately, working below me or for me. But sometimes I do need work doing, and I'm not an expert in that area. So, for example, at the moment, I am trying to turn a lot of my popular blog posts into YouTube videos. So hopefully they will look good and they will be coming out over the next few weeks and months. And I don't know the first thing about video editing, so I've hired somebody to do that for me. And where I find these jobs is there's a couple of major freelancer websites. One's called Upwork.com and one's called Fiverr with 2 R's. And they're both great. And one of the things that I've said to students recently is that these are fantastic platforms actually for students to gain work experience, especially in the area of social media, because there are a lot of companies and organizations around the world that are advertising these kinds of jobs on these freelance websites right now. I see it myself. And that's because they're not experts in social media. They don't have the time. They need to focus their attentions in other areas. So they want to hire people to look after their Facebook or their Instagram or their newsletters or whatever it may be. And this can be a great opportunity actually for students while you are studying, because you can take on as much or as little work as you like, depending on your schedule, whether you've got assignments or exams or whatever. And you can get some really valuable work experience there that you can put on your CV, which can help enhance your CV, which can make you more employable, which is super important post-COVID because it's going to be a more competitive marketplace. So, you can take something that's your hobby, scrolling through Instagram in the evening, watching YouTube videos, And you can turn that into a little side hustle or a little part-time income stream or whatever. And I think that's great. So, that's just some food for thought, or something that you could do, or you could advise your students to do if you want. Okay, moving on. Smart tourism. So smart tourism is basically intelligent tourism. It is growing and it is going to grow a lot more. So for those of you who aren't familiar, I am in China. I'm in Hangzhou, China, a city no one's ever heard of, but it is the size of London, not too far from Shanghai. And here in China, they love technology. They've really embraced technology over the last few years. And the rest of the world, if they're not on a similar level, will be in the near future, I'm sure. So I'll give you 3 examples of smart tourism that I've experienced myself just in the last few weeks here in China. So the first is room service in your hotel. Lots of hotels will have a QR code. You scan it, you order your can of Coke, and the next thing you know, a robot's at your door with your drink. And then when you go down to breakfast in the morning, you might be sharing the lift with said robot. And it's quite a novel experience, actually. And my children always find it hilarious that there are robots walking around or moving around the hotel. So that's one example. Another example I will give you was when I went to a sort of an enclave resort. It's called Senbo. I would probably describe it as a combination of a Butlins and a Center Parcs. It's maybe somewhere in the middle. And we bought tickets to go to the water park. So it's an indoor water park. And they took a photo of my face. I thought, oh, why do they want my photo for? And then when I went to go through the barriers to go into the water park, they scanned my face as my ticket. So that obviously is more environmentally friendly because you haven't got paper tickets. It requires less human capital, and so an organisation can save money on paying people because your face is being automatically scanned by a machine. A person can't check that you are, well, I suppose they could if they had a handheld computer to check photos, but it's very fast and efficient, providing all the technology is working. And my third example is when you go to a theme park. So I went to Disney recently because things are open and pretty normal here in China. We went to Disney for Christmas in Shanghai, and there's a Disney app. So we use the Disney app to track where are the queues. So this is a way of managing tourist flow. So naturally, a lot of people are inclined to just go to the first ride that takes their fancy, that's closest to the entrance in a theme park. But what this app does is it helps to disperse, and you see this in a lot of theme parks, it helps to disperse the tourists. And so you'll see actually that first ride has a queue already. Let's walk to the back of the park and go on that ride first. And it helps to evenly distribute people and manage crowds, etc. So these are some examples of smart tourism, and smart tourism is going to grow, is going to get bigger. So there are lots of jobs in that. So if you are a person who is interested in technology, maybe you're quite good at IT, then working in smart tourism could be something that interests you. Sustainability is kind of a given. I think we all know the importance of sustainability and sustainable tourism. If we don't plan for the future, there will be no future. If we carry on killing our environment that we are living in this way, then there will be no environment to live in the future. And that might sound quite extreme, but take it to a smaller level. We go to the beach, we all throw litter on that beach, nobody wants to go to that beach anymore. Whereas if you have a plan and you have daily or weekly or whatever cleaning, and you pay people and you have projects, then you keep the beach nice, then tourists want to keep coming. And that's a really simplistic example. But sustainability is all about planning for the future. And it's all about making sure that you are developing a tourism industry, not only for now, but that's going to last in years to come. And sustainability has been getting bigger and bigger in recent years, and it's only set to continue to grow as organizations, in some cases, might be forced into it because of new regulations and law enforcement, or they might be doing it because of their CSR policies and they want to have a better image, or they might be doing it for completely philanthropic reasons because they do care genuinely about looking after the environment. So there are lots of jobs in sustainability. You could be a architect of an eco-lodge, or you could be, working in volunteer tourism, raising baby turtles on a beach in Costa Rica, or you could be empowering local women in Uganda through pro-poor tourism. There are so many different types of jobs. I'm sorry, my daughter's super noisy and cheeky. So there are so many jobs, and there's only going to be more and more of these types of jobs. So they're pretty wide-ranging, starting from basic jobs through to very complex sort of research-based jobs, which might require a PhD, for example. And I think this is an interesting one, and I'm not talking about this because I live in China. I'm talking about this because this is important. Chinese tourism has grown a huge amount in recent years, as you can see in this graph here. And there are two reasons for this. The first is that China as a country has developed economically really, really quickly. Every single day, more people in China are lifted out of poverty. There is still poverty in China, but it's no longer the poor country that it once was. And there's actually some serious wealth in China too. Serious wealth. I think I may have seen a statistic that said after America, it's got the most millionaires in the world in China. I mean, it's a big country, so obviously that you've got to take that into account. But people in China have a lot of money to spend, and there's a lot of people. There's 1.5 billion people live in China. Now, the second reason why Chinese outbound tourism is so important is because socially the country has evolved really, really quickly as well. And if you just look at the difference between one generation, there's a really big difference. And people have been given a lot more freedoms. People have become a lot more liberal in their thinking than they were maybe 10, 20 years ago. And with that, people have a desire to travel and see the world and explore. So with that comes a very valuable industry. The Chinese outbound tourism industry is worth a lot of money. And I also heard that Chinese tourists spend more than any other nationality, I think, bar the US. So not only are there loads of people in China, but more and more of them want to travel every single day, and they spend more money than other tourists too. So if you are a tourist destination or an attraction or an accommodation provider or whatever, it makes sense that you would market your products to Chinese tourists. Get the Chinese tourists to come and visit because they spend more money, because there's loads of them. There is a very valuable market, and it's going to continue to be super valuable. And it's really worth it's one that's worth looking into and investing some time into. Now, ancillary revenue is something that I touched on before. So I touched on it within the airline industry, but it's not only airlines. Organizations in all parts of the travel and tourism industry are trying to work out ways to make extra income, to make a bit more money. And if you are interested in finance, accounts, economics, that kind of area, then this might be something you want to work in, because it's a big sector, it's a growing sector, and it's all about how can we make more money, how can we do that effectively, how can we do that sustainably. So that's a big market that will have lots of jobs in the next few years, I expect. Niche tourism, also often referred to as special interest tourism. Niche tourism has been growing in recent years, and it will continue to grow. Now, the reason for this is because our wants and our preferences as consumers, as travelers and tourists, have changed over the last few years. And we don't want the standardized package mass tourism model to the same extent that we did a decade or two ago. And people are looking for something different from their holiday, whether that's being able to take part in sports or to experience the local culture. And we talked lots about cultural and heritage tourism last week with Nigel, which was a great talk. If you missed that one, it is on YouTube. And there are lots of different types of tourism that might still be fairly small, but they are growing in size because people are moving away from this traditional model, and they are moving into all these different niches because we are more interested in doing something different, something useful, etc. So there will be more jobs in the niche tourism sector and probably less in the mass tourism, typical sun, sea, sand type holidays. And then this is one that quite interests me, is Airbnb. Now I put Airbnb here. It doesn't have to be Airbnb. It can be an alternative platform that offers a similar service, like VBRO, I think it's called. I think they do the same kind of thing. And there will, I'm sure, be new players that come into the market. But Airbnb has disrupted the travel and tourism industry in many ways. And I'm not necessarily going into all of the details about that right now. But it does provide people, if this is an avenue that they want to pursue, with quite a lucrative, potentially lucrative income opportunity. Because what you do is you invest in an Airbnb property. You can then earn money from that by renting your room or your whole property or whatever you may have. Rent that out to tourists. You know, there are some quite unusual places, tree houses, castles, things like that on Airbnb. So whatever it is you've got to offer the tourists, rent it out, take that money, keep it, and then save that, and it can help you buy the next one. Then you've got double the income, you keep that, save it up, buy the third one, then you've got 3 incomes, 4, 5, 6, and potentially within a few years you can have a whole Airbnb empire. Now, there are a number of factors and variables that will inevitably impact this. You know, where are you buying? How much are you spending? How many tourists go to that area? What's the tourism industry like? Is it high paying? Is it low paying? What's the cost of living? All those sorts of things, of course. And lots of people actually do work with property investment companies who can advise them on the best places to buy. Where are you likely to get the best yield? Where, you know, which tourism industries are the most sustainable, etc. So those kinds of things. But Airbnb is something that a lot of people do complain about, and for good reason, because they are, you know, people are staying in Airbnbs instead of hotels, which is taking the business away from hotels. Because people are buying local properties for tourism, it's raising the prices for local people who can no longer afford to live there. That's causing gentrification and things like that, which obviously is not good. But today, from a careers perspective, this is a career, if somebody is interested in property, that they can embark on. Okay, so that is my last point, and I've talked for over 30 minutes now, which I don't know how I've managed to talk for so long. But I hope that you found that interesting. Next week, we have a speaker. It is Annette Toivonen. I hope I've said her surname right. And I think it's going to be a really fascinating one because she's an expert in space travel. So she's written a book and she's done a lot of research in space tourism, space travel. So I can't wait to speak to her. That's going to be on Monday, so it's just in 3 days' time, at 3:45 p.m. China time, 9:45 a.m. UK time. So on LinkedIn and on Facebook, you can. I've put it out there that I've scheduled it. So I think you can click on that and get a notification to remind you nearer the time if you do want to tune in live. But as always, all of the videos will be on IGTV and YouTube afterwards as well. So I hope you found that interesting anyway. And, you know, that's just a little bit on careers, which is pretty important. And a lot of students are coming towards the end of their courses. So careers is something that inevitably is going to be on the forefront of their minds. So, yeah, please do share this video with your students or show it in class or whatever, if you like it, if you think it will be helpful. I will upload it probably over the next couple of days, and it will be on YouTube. So if you do go on YouTube, as I said, I am also planning to make a lot of educational videos, which I hope will be really useful for students and for people who are learning about the industry. So please do subscribe, because I'm new to the YouTube thing. Follow me on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, etc. too. So I will just have a look at these questions quickly. What is the future of tourism? Well, the future of tourism, I'll say this super quickly, is coming back. It's going to be big. We just got to be patient. It always comes back every time. I hope it will be more sustainable. I hope. But other than that, things might not look that different. Hopefully it'll be more sustainable though, because that has really been, sustainability has been highlighted, hasn't it? Yeah. China, US, EU, Canada may have a good future. Opportunities will come, but what about South Asian subcontinent? I think once COVID has gone, then that there will be tourism will bounce back everywhere. And actually, from a lot of perspectives, we can start again. And this is a great time for tourism organizations to really take a step back, reflect on how you've been working for the last however many years, but also to improve what you do and what you offer, and make it more sustainable, make it more eco-friendly, those kinds of things. Yeah, but I don't want to delve too much into that. So thank you very much. If anyone has any questions, please do drop me an email. And I'm about to go to school and pick up my daughter because it's nearly 2:30. Thanks for tuning in.